Up next, two brothers talk about two brothers as they take on dragons, wolfmen, and tyrannical warlords in the Barbarians. And it's next on Warehouse B. All right, guys, welcome back to Warehouse B. I'm Andrew. With me again today is Brad. What's going on, man?
Hey, man.
Well, today we're going to talk about Brad. I believe this is one of your favorite fantasy movies, isn't it? The Barbarians.
It is. If you've watched Conan 1 and Conan 2 and you're looking for Conan 3, this is as close as you're going to get.
Yeah. Before we get into the plot, you want to tell everybody the story of this and tell them about how you discovered this movie, and then like our friend Lucas, who sometimes leaves comments on our videos, what this movie means to him. It's a cool story.
Yeah, so as a kid, I grew up reading sword and sorcery and playing those games and into tabletop stuff. And my mom brings this movie home for me, probably early 2000s, and she's like, "Here, check this out." And it's this movie clearly inspired by the Barbarians, but it's the B version of that movie. But it's got enough humor and action in it that it ends up being more than the sum of its parts, because some of the things are so well done, and it's just
Yeah.
I love this movie. So full disclosure there, but I was really excited about this movie after my mom brought it home. So of course I got to show it to my best friend, and he loves it. We grow up. He goes on to college and ends up showing it to his whole dorm room, and everybody on his floor of the dorm falls in love with this movie. So it gained a huge cult following in our friend group.
Yeah. Didn't you say something about how, like, if they wanted to join his chess club or something, they had to watch this movie? Did I hear that right?
I don't know if it was that severe, but yeah, everybody basically that we came across who ended up in our friends group, we forced this movie upon them.
Yeah.
We're like, this is a rite of passage, cheesy Conan movie that you need to watch.
As you should when you got a movie this B movie fantastic. Everybody has to see it.
Yeah.
This movie, directed by Ruggero Deodato, so that ought to tell you where it was shot, over in Italy, was made for $4 million, brought home $800K as the box office, which, whew, just a shame. It found its audience later, with you included, on home video many years later, and I'm sure it made its budget over many times by this point. But so the basic plot of this thing, if I can sum it up as quickly as I can, you've got this group. I can't remember what they're called, but they basically have the rite of passage through this land, and they're the only ones who do. They have a queen who has this ruby, and it brings everyone joy and peace, and just all the things in life that matter. This warlord, played by the great Richard Lynch, which, if you go back, we've talked about him on this channel in Trancers 2. He's a great villain in that. He wants the ruby for himself, of course. They kill just about everybody on this trail. He ends up falling for the Queen Canary, which I thought was kind of funny. Keeps her hostage in his harem. There's these two young boys in this group named Kuchek and Gore, and they end up in the skirmish taking two of his fingers and biting them off. The Queen's like, "No, don't kill him," and so he ends up taking them and teaching them the fight. And basically kind of learning to hate each other without knowing it. He's not going to kill them himself, but he is going to have them kill each other, not knowing. You just have to see the movie for that to make sense.
And
But
it's sorry to cut you off. That's a great scene with them in the fight pits
yes,
and the people sitting perched up above, and some of the perspective shots they take like down those corridors are amazing. A guy's sticking his arm out, um, rooting on the fights, and he ends up getting his arm severed.
and it's great.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, they end up knocking each other's helmets off. You've got my face, or something to that. And they end up, of course, escaping and finding the rest of the people who were in this group. From that point on, they're actually going off and trying to find the ruby. They run into Kara, who I guess was she a part of that group earlier on? It's like they knew her.
Yeah, I don't know what her affiliation is. It's not real clear. Either they knew her or she's just some kind of roguish character that they've run into on occasion, it seems like.
Yeah, come across in passing.
Yeah.
But that's the basic plot, and they're trying to get this ruby before Lynch's character of Kadar does. It's just a fun movie. So aside from the story, one of the things I like about this is the setting. I'm pretty sure, given the director's name, they must have filmed this over in the Mediterranean, maybe Italy. And like that opening scene where they're caravanning across there with the mountains in the background.
Yeah.
I thought that was really great. I thought some of the places they fought, like when they're trying to get that ruby and they're in that swampy looking place, I thought that was good. Do you have any favorite parts of this movie setting wise?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I love that intro where the caravan is moving across and they're chasing them. Killers are trying to catch up to the caravan. That whole scene is fantastic.
Yeah, even from an action standpoint, even it's fantastic.
Yeah, from the mountains in the background. There's a scene where horses come out. And there's like a waterfall in the background. That's beautiful. But then the thing that like brings you back to reality is you'll have these epic looking, beautiful shots of the scenery and the landscapes. And then you'll have really hokey 80s set pieces too. Like where they're getting ready to sneak into where the dragon's at and they got to go through a cave.
Yeah, the whole dragon, the face and everything was really almost cartoonish.
Yeah, but the animatronic dragon's really bad.
Yeah. But at the same time, we can forgive it because it's got that 80s charm that we all know and love.
Yeah, and it's all practical effects in this movie. The whole movie is practical effects. And there's something really endearing now about going back and watching these movies with practical effects because you took them for granted back then.
Yeah.
You can look at something and go, okay, that's a little hokey. But modern movies have just killed the soul of everything with CGI.
CGI, or I was just talking on my channel about shaky cam stuff in action movies where you can't tell what's going on. Yeah, this has none of that kind of stuff. It's in camera, it's practical, and that's why we love it. I've read somewhere that the costumes in this movie were leftovers from Red Sonja, which would make sense. I like Red Sonja a lot. Most people don't, but I always thought that was a fun movie. I heard rumor that Arnold Schwarzenegger used to threaten his kids, like if you don't behave, we'll watch Red Sonja as a punishment. I kind of like that movie. We might have to talk about it down the line.
I like Red Sonja too. I also really enjoy Lady Hawk, which is kind of in the same vein.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely talk some sword and sorcery movies. I know just amongst me and Brad, we've talked about doing Deathstalker 2 sometime fairly soon. Were there any just amazing action scenes in this movie that you loved, aside from that first chase?
Yeah, the one scene in this movie that I got to mention is the arm wrestling contest.
Yes. I'm glad you mentioned that.
They go there, I think, to some money to...
Weapons.
Yeah, they're needing some weapons. But yeah, they go to this place. It's kind of like a bar scene. There's this guy who's supposed to be real strong, and he's like the boss of the place, and he's got a big python. One of the brothers, I can't remember if it's Kuchek or Gore, but...
Gore's the one that arm wrestles him because I paid attention to it today when I watched it.
Okay, yeah, Gore sits down to arm wrestle him, and then all hell breaks loose. Of course, Gore wins because imagine a guy that's twice the size of Arnold arm wrestling, just a big Italian guy, basically. A fight scene breaks out, and one of the things that I really noticed about this movie, I went back and watched bits and pieces of it that I was missing earlier today, and the sound effects in this movie are fantastic. I don't know who did them. They're over the top. There's a lot of reverb to them, so a punch sounds great in this movie.
Yeah, like it
And
just took someone's head off.
yeah, and there's punches abound, and the weapon strikes are that way. Like at one point, he throws a guy across the room, and he lands on the back of a horse, and a horse neighs and takes off, and all the sounds are just huge.
Yeah,
in this movie.
But I'm actually glad you brought this scene up, because this scene is actually, I don't know how much of a callback it is, but we did a review here on Warehouse B. I think it's episode 5. That guy in that scene, his name is George Eastman. He's an Italian actor. He also played Raoul in Hands of Steel, and they arm wrestled over a poisonous snake in that movie, which was the year before this movie.
Okay.
So, I don't know if maybe like he helped produce or was in on it and they were just filling scenes or what, but yeah, they actually had like a box and your hand would get bitten by a rattlesnake. And so I just laughed. I howled when I saw that was George Eastman.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a hilarious scene. Another standout scene is directly after that. They go to this cave to get the weapons they were told about. And it's not intentional. I think it was just a bad cut on the cutting floor. I can't remember if it's Kuchik or Gore, because they're identical twins. So the whole movie, you don't know who's who.
Yeah, I just had to pay attention to their wardrobe. Like they're wearing a slightly different.
Yeah. But one of them picks up one of the weapons, and as soon as he does, this big like wolf rat creature walks into the cave and goes to attack him. He swings his weapon, and as soon as the weapon hits what would be like the creature's neck, there's a cut. Like the exact moment his blade hits. And it doesn't show the sword going through. The very next scene is the creature's head flying across the room. So there's like no continuity. It's just he hits and the thing's head goes flying. And as a kid, the first time I watched that, I remember I howled laughing.
It's a pretty rough editing.
I don't know if was the editing or if it was intentional, but it is the funniest thing.
Followed by the second funniest thing, when they start howling and barking.
Yeah, they bray like donkeys sometimes in this movie.
Yeah. There's a hanging scene where the old guard gets them, and they're going to hang Kuchek and Gore and Kara, and of course Gore ends up like straining his neck muscles and popping the noose around his neck, and he's buying. I'm not even going to try to do it, but he's braying like a donkey, and they do that several times throughout the movie, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Kind of like their war cry, I guess.
Yeah.
Did you have any really bad cons in this movie?
There aren't any huge cons. I've got a couple nitpicks, but like I said, this is, as far as B movies from the 80s go, this is going to be in my top 5 probably of all time. I don't see any glaring weaknesses to it. The plot's a little weak.
The acting is what it is.
Whenever you hire 2 Italian bodybuilders from Jersey to be the lead actors,
they're constantly arguing too, and their jerseys coming out. It's great. What
saves it is the entire time they're charismatic. The entire movie, they're super charismatic. So I mean, they sell it.
Yeah.
Despite being these 2 idiots from Jersey, they sell the movie. A good analogy for this movie would be wrestling from the 80s. If you combine that aesthetic and that level of cheese with Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
And Conan already had a bit of that, but this is that taken to the extreme.
They like to argue a lot over possessions, and I'm going to go to this shot right here. There's a couple times in the movie where like Gore has the axe, and he's like, I want the sword, and he gets the sword, and he's like, no, I want the axe. And at the end of the movie, they fight over the reins here. It's really funny. just the brotherly stuff that you kind of take for granted in things. They really play it up here, and I like that. I got a chuckle out of both of those scenes. One little nitpick that I have, and it's not a big one, but it's Michael Berryman, who of course was in The Hills Have Eyes. You know, he's kind of the weird looking dude with no eyebrows. I believe his name's Dirt Master
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
He was so over the top in his performance, like giddy in a lot of the scenes that they did in this movie. And it's not necessarily a con because I was laughing at his performance the entire time, but I think it was for the wrong reasons.
Yeah, it's really odd. He's really odd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he's people are beating each other up and he's getting just like overly excitable, and it was funny.
Yeah, the other small issue I had with this film was the score. You talked to me about it before. You said it seemed a little disconnected.
Yeah.
I went back just before doing this review and I listened to like 5 tracks. It varies. There's parts of the soundtrack that are great. Like there's some really good orchestral stuff here. But then they mix it in with like 80s Phil Collins drum beats and synthwave. And they do it in a way that doesn't work at all. Like it'll be great synth stuff. And then in the same song they'll add that Phil Collinsy sound and stuff. And it's not cohesive at all.
It's pretty jarring.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like what we're saying, it's that 80s cheese, that charm. So I don't hate it for it.
Yeah. For the time, it's exactly what you'd expect.
Yeah.
You're not gonna, any action movie from that time is gonna have that synthwave stuff. So I think if they would have cut the synth stuff out and it just would have been all orchestral, I think the soundtrack would have been great. I think half of it's probably fantastic and the other half, if you took both pieces of music in a different context by themselves, they'd be fine. But mixing them is, like you said, it's jarring.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably our biggest con on the movie. Overall, I had a lot of fun with it. And when you said you originally wanted to do the Barbarians, and I'd never seen it until like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, okay, we'll do the Barbarians. Man, this was fun. This was a lot of fun. And my score is going to reflect that. What do you have for a score for this out of 5?
Out of 5 for cheesy 80s movies, this is number 1 or 2 for me. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5.
Cool.
I love this movie. Yeah,
I'm going to go 4. You know, there are some things here or there that, you know, you look at and you go, but overall, it was fun, and it was way better than what I was anticipating. I just watched the first Death Stalker not too long ago, and I was expecting something along those lines, and this was way more charming than that.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, guys, if you've not seen the Barbarians or not seen the Barbarians in a long time, it's on Tubi. Be sure to check it out. It's probably one I'm going to watch about once a year now, but I'm glad Brad told me to watch this. It was a lot of fun. Coming up next, it'll be episode 36. We're going to do Wolf Cop. Brad's going to be back with me for that one. So that's a really fun movie. I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about that. So yeah, guys, that sounds like a lot of fun. Until next time, for Brad, I'm Andrew, and we'll see you down the line on the next Warehouse B.